everybody. I'm Darek Mazzone. Welcome to Sama, Seattle Sacred Music and Art. We are at Rain Shadow Recording, a brilliantly beautiful studio in Fort Worden in Port Townsend, a lovely little town just outside of Seattle. I'm here with Lois Landgrebe, tribal storyteller for the Tulalip Tribe, and we just participated in a heart-opening performance and storytelling presentation that Lois did at the Wilshire Theater as part of ThinkFest, our partners in STG, where we're focusing on bringing in tribal storytellers to elevate their voices and make sure that everybody around here knows the history as much as possible of the indigenous communities that have been taking care of this part of the world for thousands of years. Lois, thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate you being here. You shared a bit about your life with us, and it was beautiful and heartbreaking all at the same time. One of the things that really struck me is that you didn't know your tribe and your history until you turned 21. And you're speaking the language like, as you said, one of your elders said, like a salmon takes to water. What was it about you realizing where you were from that made this connection for you so strong that you are now language as salmon to water in this? Tell us your story.
When I first came to Tulalip, it's so funny, I didn't know anybody. And I think that broke my heart as a young person. And I wanted to be instantly known.
Okay.
I didn't have the patience, to figure out who was who, what families were at Tulalip, who was related to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm still discovering, family members today.
Wow. I don't want to tell your story, but you were contacted by your birth mother.
Yes.
Where were you living beforehand?
I was living in Wenatchee.
Okay.
Before that, I was living at Florida. So,
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
My adopted father was in the Coast Guard.
Okay.
And we moved all around.
Okay.
Hawaii, Florida.
Wow.
Washington, D.C.
So was Tulalip, did it feel like home when you finally got there? Or was it a moment of, I don't know if I'm here?
It was kind of difficult. I wanted it to be home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think getting to know folks, and I think becoming a teacher or a language teacher assistant at the time was a quick way. And I didn't even know. I just applied and figured it was a strand of our culture
Mm-hmm.
that I could, enter. And they put me on a video, like I said, Introduction to Lashutseed, 1996. And the board of directors back then were just intrigued. They were like, who's this?
Yeah.
So nobody hardly knew me, and I just showed up out of the blue and started making videos.
Okay.
But I would learn just, barely ahead of the videos and, be filmed.
What did you know about the Tulalip beforehand? Anything?
Absolutely nothing. My adopted paternal grandmother told me when I was 12 that I was from Tulalip, the Tulalip people. And I saw a sign. I was on a Greyhound bus on my way to Port Orchard. And I was just nonchalantly looking out the window, and there was this sign that said Tulalip Indian Reservation, next right. I jumped out of my seat and wanted to stop the bus.
Wow.
Because I, as young as I was 19, and
That's not that young.
it was my young mind. I was pretty young, so.
It bears saying that you've gone from literally beginner mind. You have no idea who you are, where you're from, what's going on. You've been told something by somebody, And now I'm talking to somebody who's actually at the forefront of presenting, preserving, and sharing the language and culture of this tribe, this community that you're part of, that you did not know until 19 plus that you were part of that community. That's a big step.
Yes.
And I'm super curious. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Tell me about the Tulalip. What should I know about your community, about your tribe, about your people?
The Tulalip Tribes it's just a location,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the name of the bay.
Okay.
So, and the bay has a specific sandbar that when the tide goes out, you have to bring your boat and canoes around.
Mm-hmm.
So the form of the bay, you have to come around to the bottom, looking, bird's eye view. So it means Tulalip.
Oh,
Op
Tulalip.
is the bottom of. Lail is going all the way around, and Duh is a direction.
Oh, wow.
So Tulalip.
Okay.
So some of our old timers and elders would snap at people saying, "I'm a Tulalip," or they'd say that's just a location. If you're going to say Tulalip tribal member,
Okay.
but you are Snohomish, you are Snoqualmie, you are, so
Okay. How many tribes?
4 tribes altogether,
Okay.
and some, and it says some allied bands.
Okay.
So probably about half a dozen or so
When
combining together.
can you tell us about the history? When did the tribes combine, and a bit of the reasoning behind that? Probably dealing with the federal government and that relationship. But can you share that with us?
The Elliott Treaty was signed in 1855 by the governor Isaac Stevens, and the removal didn't happen immediately, but within a matter of time, everybody had to relocate.
Mm-hmm.
And the reservation, it's now the Tulalip Reservation. The reserved land was where a lot of folks, our people had to move to. And it was allotted, and there was sections, given to specific head of families,
Mm-hmm.
and they would divide their allotment among their families. The removal and relocation was not a very good transition. Folks, when they moved there, they didn't understand land ownership because our people didn't believe in owning specific patches of land. They believed in using and harvesting and being foragers as well as fishermen and hunters. So it was a devastating time because it was not well organized. Folks starved. They thought they could make us into farmers. Tulalip Tribe's marshland is not farmland. So that's why some folks ended up starving. The water supply was not thought of. So folks had to pack water, to their 1 or 2 room shacks. So again, it was a very, very hard time.
I'm sorry that that happened like that, and it's a common story that continues. What is happening with the Tulalip tribe community? What is happening now? If we're going into now, and also what do you hope will happen in the future?
We have a nice government, or we self-govern ourselves through a 7-member board of directors, where the people elect every year, and the term is 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Self-Governance Act, 1937, and that's about when Tulalip Tribes had just a house for the admin building, and there was 3 employees, and we've come a long way, baby.
Yeah, I bet.
So
We pass.
And we built an admin building and a gym and a longhouse. The longhouse was amazing, and I love saying this because the way I put it, folks are just intrigued. Longhouses were against the law. They were burnt down, and they didn't want indigenous people to be in large groups because it made settlers nervous. So after we started self-governance, and even during the boarding school time, William Shelton went to Buchanan and asked, since he was also the Indian scout as well as the superintendent of the boarding school, if the Tulalip could build a longhouse. And they would celebrate treaty days, the signing of the treaty, and Buchanan took it to Olympia,
Mm-hmm.
and the government sent it to the White House, and all the government was happy. They're excited about the treaty. If they do their own supply and do their own, they can build it. So, and we had a lumber mill. So William Shelton and his sons had a lumber mill there. So they had the lumber and they could build the longhouse. To this very day, we still have treaty days.
All right.
On January 22nd. So we uphold and our end of,
the agreement.
we don't always feel it's celebrated because, treaty rights has to be battled all the time.
Yeah, I bet.
So, but having that, everybody all around Washington State knew about one longhouse when it was outlawed.
On that note, how did the Tulalip keep their community, their culture alive under that kind of pressure? Whether it's boarding schools, just cultural domination, and obviously diseases and everything else that was going down. Can you speak about the process a bit if you can?
I think it was a lot of families staying together and doing, which was also against the law, doing winter powwows. And it's like an underground, where they could sing their drum songs.
Mm-hmm.
And keep the spiritual aspect, which we call COing, going. And so that was a difficult but very important facet to keep going, because to them it was important
Mm-hmm.
to keep that religious part of our people going. That's what connected us to the earth. And severing that can, just be so devastating that I don't think our ancestors at the time could ever figure how could we move on without that.
Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because this is one of the subjects that we're really focusing on with Sama, is like, what is that connection? What is that connection to the land, to this people, to the ancestors that keeps you grounded? Not grounded as in like you're stuck, but you know where your roots are, and as we age through life and as we grow, lets us know where we are, so we're not just confused in that way. How does that process work?
Could I share one of my?
Yeah, please, we're here.
It might take a while. No.
Okay.
I did not get we have where we're a host and we have a spiritual partner, and that looks for you or seeks you in the ancestral time. Young ones and sometimes grown-ups would go on a spirit quest, and that is where they fast. And a lot of cultures go through that. You put yourself through a stressful situation, that cleanses you, and it opens you up to opportunity of that connection. I did that without even knowing. It seems like my life, I do stuff without knowing.
Yeah.
I ran away and ended up in the mountains for, I don't know where I was going. I just knew that I was angry and upset.
How old were you?
16.
Okay.
I was barefooted and in shorts, and I went up
You were
into
really
the
mad.
mountains. Yes, yes. I tore up my feet and legs from all that. But that was the stress part of where I put my body through. I didn't even know. I didn't eat, and I came across, I could have been crossing the same stream over and over
exactly.
again, for all I know. So every time I really needed water, there was a stream. So, I lost my adopted mother when I was 11. So it was hard for me to face life without her, especially at a young age as I was. So by the time I was 16, up in the mountain, no electricity, no TVs, no distraction. And I think that's what our ancestors did. They were away from everything, no distraction. It is you and you alone. And I had to face that. And I screamed and cried, my first night up there. And I have a feeling that's probably when something came down to me. And on the fourth day, when I went back into society, I felt different. I wanted to feel ashamed, but I couldn't. There was something about me that I couldn't feel ashamed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was like a vision quest for you.
Yeah.
You came. That's beautiful. You're carrying a lot with your own history, with the history of your tribe, and the fact that you've taken on this role as an educator, a teacher. Because anytime you're a teacher, you have to pass this along. How do you balance all that?
I think just being me.
Okay.
Because I think I'm guided by what I feel is my spirit partner.
And do you know, do you have a sense, was this a particular family member, or is it just more of a feeling?
It's more of a feeling.
Okay.
Yeah. And being the educator, I've always been drawn to children, and I've always got along with, they say whatever you're comfortable with in childhood, that's what you're going to be when you're a grown. That's what you're supposed to follow.
Okay.
When you're a grown-up.
Interesting.
Because something about your childhood and about your personality, you find out what, brings that utter happiness. And I was always looking after and teaching the smaller kids in my communities. I didn't even know I was doing it. And so when one of my uncles found out, that I had reunited with my, native family, and I became a language teacher, he wasn't even shocked. He goes, I'm not shocked one bit because of how you were how you were growing up. You were always looking after younger kids.
Okay. So you're on your path.
So it's that feeling that I get that helps me balance and helps me to live in two worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they two worlds?
Yes.
Okay.
In a way, I feel there's a sector and there's a spiritual. And sometimes there is, I don't want to offend anybody.
No,
but
offend away.
Ethnic. There's also living in the native world as well as the white world or the other.
The other world.
Yeah, the other.
How do you keep the other world, and it's known as white, but obviously there's a lot of different groups of people. There's the native world and the people that are not native, or their connection to native is so far removed, they're not here. That's a lot of pressure, especially on young people in that world, because there are two things that happen in that world. It's shiny and it's all-encompassing, but it's also in many ways hollow. And so you can never fill it. It doesn't matter how much money you have, whatever's going on, it doesn't, maybe for like a day, and then it's like gone. how do you use your work and your experience to keep the next generation focused a bit more, connected to their roots, so they can refill their batteries, their spirit or something, so that they actually have something that's tangible instead of that sugar?
Yes. So, as a teacher, especially I teach second grade. I'm going to be teaching second grade this year. I've been following these students in kindergarten, first grade, and now second grade. It's hard sometimes. It's an uphill battle. Sometimes you're in mud trying to go uphill.
Mm-hmm.
Because I sometimes hear the ridicule of, my dad says it's a dead language, why even try, or something. That's so hard to go against that. And I always pinch myself, I'm not dead. And I'm speaking.
No.
So I go, it's not, it's still here, because Miss Lois is talking. So they'd
Absolutely.
be like, yeah, that's, So it's really, like I said, it's difficult when you have to face something like that. Sometimes there are folks who wonder why have, the Lashute seed, why speak it now when the world's turning into all English. I tell them it's a bridge between where we were and where we're going. It's the instrument, that connects us to nature. And I'll use it, I'll say, like the word for snake, it's beautiful and it's obvious, but sots, that sounds like a snake.
Uh-huh.
The word for frog, what, that's just, there's so much more hidden in our language, that has been here for thousands of years. And Vi Hilbert said it's like a caressing from nature. It's that, the explanation, it's inside the words. The knowledge, it's inside the words. To lose that, it makes us a poor people.
It's a genocide. If you lose that, you lose your identity. That's what we see happening. Once you lose a language, you lose that culture. And we're seeing this throughout the world. You're saying that the world is becoming all English. Other countries and cultures, that they don't want that. They don't want to lose their sense of identity. They see what happened, and it's super important for you to continue to do that. My co-founder John was talking about this a little while ago. He's saying, like, within your community, the passage of life is not processed, but celebrated, and you know where you are from beginning. There's to middle to end, and you're continuing, and even going further, where you have ancestors, and they're in one space, and you are here. So you're always connecting in that way. And we've always found this super fascinating, especially in the context of what we're doing with Sama, where we're looking at maturity, we're looking at those passages. As I was saying before, there's, in the West right now, we have, there are moments that are, in the past, there would be a ceremony, and you were no longer here, you're now here. We're missing those ceremonies, and people are trying to hold on to youth, or they can't really, they're confused about where they are anymore. They're not grandparents, they're in this other situations, or they're not suddenly parents again. How do you, as a community, what do you do in these, what are some of the tools that your community uses to help people go through this process?
I feel some of our practices and some of our rituals, have been lost and have gone on with some of our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
The rites of passage is a pretty important, there was ceremonies for girls and there was ceremonies for boys. There's also ceremonies for women that no longer have their cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a way of showing this is where you are,
Mm-hmm.
this is where you're going to be. And, it was showing you've become an elder. You've become this. Sometimes it came through with namings. You got a name for childhood, and then you earned a name for a grown-up, and then you went through that. You weren't stagnant,
Yeah.
So there was
That's beautiful.
this type
Why would you have the same name that you had as a baby when you're 65?
Well, some carry
Yeah.
more. They may carry all three of their names,
Yeah.
showing that they are.
So you're in, and it's an evolution. That's beautiful. That's powerful. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You know what Yao Yashta means?
Yao
That's my
Yachta.
Indian name is Yao Yashta. It means a female deer who just lost her spots.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yachta.
yes. I got it just before I became a grandmother. So I jokingly tell folks that I feel it's a proper name for me. I always thought it wasn't my name, and I actually had to have a dream tell me that it was. I was in a car accident
I'm sorry.
in 1996, and the way it happened, the car turned into a small store on our reservation, started tumbling, and we were on our way to our first salmon ceremony. My 2 kids were in the back, and my spouse at the time was driving. And being a passenger, I was like in shock because we just got done seeing a preview of Twister.
Oh, wow.
And then all of a sudden, here, this is happening to us. I felt like I'm going to eat popcorn and watch this. Your brain just goes, "Is this really going to happen?" Because it's just coming towards you. And the vehicle landed on the engine of our car, stopping us, and then land upside down behind us. And the way everything looked, even the fire chief thought, "Oh, somebody's, this looks
Didn't
like a
make it.
fatality or somebody in the hospital." We all walked away fine.
Wow.
And what was amazing, my dream was about a deer came out of the woods. I was in a field surrounded by some parked cars. I don't know if I was, you don't know, you're just all of a sudden in the dream.
Yeah.
And I was walking along. I don't know if I was at a powwow or a festival or what have you. And the deer jumped in front of me and then sprung up and landed on a parked car next to me, crunching the engine in and then springing back into the woods. And so that was saying to me, when I put it all together, that could have landed on the cab and crunched my family and I,
Yeah.
and we would not be.
You wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you for sharing that, Lois.
Yes.
How do some of these rituals, such as Sweat Lodge, and add to that process of stress for transition?
I think putting yourself through such temperature change like that. I go up to the mountains and take dunks in December and January
Mm-hmm.
type waters, and that is and you really have to find that inner strength.
Yeah.
Because you almost don't want to, but
No.
you know you need to. And it is finding that inner strength to go underwater, come back up, finding that prayer of what, you go, I'm going to do this because I want this, and that type of action or activity, shows I'm doing this for, I don't know how to put it, I'm doing this for a price.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I'm doing this, and it shows the spirit and shows that, it's like grabbing their attention,
Mm-hmm.
like grabbing, how you want to look at spirituality.
Yeah.
I don't know if other cultures like Buddhists or whatever going through something, they want that. I'm right here. I've done this.
I'm ready to receive.
Yeah,
You've done the work.
This is what I need.
Yeah.
Or
Now
this
that in some of the esoteric studies, that very very common, and it's part of the process of like, you couldn't do this until you were ready to go through that. You have to go through these processes. You have to go through these things, and it's like the smallest analogy. I have my daughter went from summer school to A's and had to realize that there were consequences for the stuff that she went through, and it was like, okay, she's different now. And as we all age and as we go through these things, there's a point where you're ready, you do the work, and then you're at the next point, at the next level. And that is part of maturity. But as John was talking about, we don't want to talk about stress, we don't want to talk about aging, we don't want to talk about any of these things. We just want to create this veneer that we're all the same. We're not. We're aging, we're changing all the time. What, if you could speak to a little bit, like within your community, within your culture, how does that process work? You talked about naming ceremonies, you talked about some of these other processes, but we're curious, is it like, are there things that happen on a daily basis that just like, okay, we're, the term is the wisdom that comes from as you grow older. You just like, I'm seeing this with my kids, it's like, you want to go like, please don't do that, but they have to, because that's the only way they're going to learn. You can't tell them not this. And we all have that with us. But is there a acknowledgement? Is there a basic daily practice or something like that you're like, as you said, you had this dream, then you had tied to your name, and now you became a grandmother, so you're living your life in a different way than you were before. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, you're on a different path.
Yes.
If you could speak to that a little bit. If you can't, that's fine too, because it's a big subject.
It is. It's a very deep subject. It's hard because some of this stuff is, a little bit sacred. But as far as maturity, I think that in the Tulalip community, Snohomish belief, putting yourself last. When there's a lot of community, in our community, there is a lot of first, because of this is how, I don't want to offend again,
Offend away.
Western civilization, where it's a me society, instamatic society. And I think the maturity part is where you start putting others first. When you become a healer, you have to put everything aside and go. When somebody says, I need work on my daughter, I need this and that, the belief is you don't say no, because someday you're going to want somebody to come to you to assist in something that's happening with you, that they're going to know that you've been there for them. And so that's part of what our cultural belief. So when you go up into the water and do your dunks, you are the last dunk. The others are for everybody else.
That's perfect.
You know, with elders being the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels like it will recharge your batteries going through that process. Lois, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Lois Landgrebe and Sama, Seattle Sacred Music and Art.